Dan Perry here with another Dan on Tech video. Again, we're doing C and C++ programming, and in this video we're going to talk a little bit about the data types that are part of the C and C++ language. And let's start with the integer data type. The integers are whole numbers, so an integer would be like a 5 or an 8. There's no fractional part. And with C in C++, you have you have a regular integer and a long integer. In the case of Visual Studio, the integer and long integer values are the same size. The range is in the neighborhood of plus and minus 2 billion each for the ints. The short or tiny integer, short integer, is in the range of plus and minus about 32,000. And we'll look at that more in just a little bit. Now, in addition to that, we have a character, or a CHAR, or character variable. These store single characters. These are 1 byte in size, and in the English language at least, it's 1 byte in size, and it stores a single character that can be A through Z, 0 through 9, hyphens, underlines, or any special characters on the keyboard. There is a 2 byte long character that is used if we're doing multi-language support, but we're not going to be doing that in this class. So we've got our character variables. Again, that could be, say, A, or a comma, or a Z, or a capital Z, or a digit, a 0. Any of those are character variables. We also have a real number, or real numbers are called floats. So we have a floating point number, and these are numbers like 6.2 or 3, 7.145. Those are floating point numbers. And there are the standard float. There is a double, which is a floating point number that has more precision. It is a larger number, larger storage, and because of the larger storage, it will store larger numbers, and so we have a bigger degree of accuracy. With a float, you have about a little over 6 digits, significant digits of accuracy, and with a double, I believe it's around 10 digits, significant digits of accuracy. So we have a much larger one. There is a data type called a long double. Now, in Visual Studio, a double and a long double are exactly the same. So it won't matter which you use in Visual Studio. If you're using GCC or some other compiler, you'll need to check that. Now, we're going to create some of these in a little bit, and when we do create them, then what we're going to do is see that and look at the size of them so we can see what the size is. There are other derived data types, classes, and things and structures that we might get into way down the road. The only other thing we have now is we can also have a string type, and the string data type stores an array or a string of characters. So where the character data type is a single character, a string is a group of characters, so there are several of those characters. So let's flip back into our program, and the header part is the same as we've used before. Let me go ahead and change a little information there. Not that it matters that much for us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of a couple of these lines, and I'm going to use the line that's left to sort of save me a little typing. And I'm going to create an integer, a data type int, I'll call it I, and I can create it there, int I, and that's valid for creating it. I could create another integer, call it j. If I want to, I can give it a starting value, so I could say j equals 0, and that would give it a starting value of 0. It's important to have a value assigned to a variable before you use it, so I would have to give I a value before I used it. Now, when we were looking at variables before, we know that we can have inside the quotes some sort of a message. So I'm going to say I equals, and then close that. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the piping symbol to separate it, and I'm going to have it output I, and then I'll go to a new line. And let's do another C out. Let's just copy that line and change the I to J. Now, I just said you need to make sure you assign these variables values before you use them. In this case, I've got an I and a J variable. I've assigned a value to J of 0. I've not done one to I. And here are my cout commands that I'm outputting. What's in quotes is exactly in quotes. Since the I and J are outside quotes, it's saying output the value of that variable. And when I run it this time, remember what I just said about assigning a value. I'm going to run it, and it'll build. Give it a few seconds. And, uh-oh, I've got an error. It says a debug error, abort, retry, ignore, and it says runtime check failure 3, variable I is being used without being initialized. So I'm going to go ahead and ignore that. And notice it puts this real long number in there. What it's doing is whatever happened to be in that memory location. And that was what was put there when I told it to ignore the error. So as long as I give it a value, let's change that to I equal 1. And now if I rerun it, it should run fine. So just be aware that you do need to give those values. And now I've got the 1 for I and the 0 for J. Now I'm going to add one more thing. We'll talk about functions later, but there's a function called size of. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to, in quotes, just put some spaces. And I really should, or actually, let me in the quote put size, and then some spaces. And then I'm going to use a function called size of, and in parentheses, I'm going to put this variable, I. Now, I can do the same thing with J, and let's do that. Let's go ahead and copy here. And what I'm going to do this time, let me change the I's to J's. J, okay. Now, I'm going to go, though, I'm going to change the variable. Well, I thought it's small. Okay, it's not identifying that as correct. I'm sorry, not small. I'm losing my mind today. Short int, that's the smaller one, so we can see the difference in size. And let's run it. And when it runs this time, we'll see that the I and J, I has a size of 4, that's 4 bytes. J has a size of 2, that's 2 bytes, so it's taking less room, which means it can't store as large a numbers. Now quickly, let's go ahead and let's do the same thing with some floats, and the float and double. So let me copy this and change this, let's say float, and let's call it A. Since it's a float, let's go give it 1.0. Float and make it B is going to be a double. And make it 0.5 or half. So A and B. And while we're at it, let me create one other, and I'm going to create a character. So I'm going to do a char for character, because you always have to tell it the data type when you create it. Give it a Z, and let's give it a value, and I put it in quotes, of C, the letter C. And so Z, 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 and Z here. If I've not made any typos, let's run this. And I've been trying to keep these videos to under 10 minutes, and I've gone a little beyond, but that will be okay here. Here again, the I and J are 4 and 2. Notice that A, which was a float, has a size of 4. B was a double, and it has a size of 8, so it's bigger. And then Z was a character, and so it has a size, I left C there, it has a size of 1 byte. So that shows how big they are and how much room they take up in memory as well. That we'll go ahead and end here, and now we'll start in the next video. We'll continue with looking at how we can input data. Be sure you subscribe to our playlist so you can get more of these videos.